Shirley Chisholm faced fierce political opponents such as Humphrey, McGovern, and Muskie in Shirley. The new Netflix historical biopic follows the true story of Chisholm's historic rise from becoming the first Black American woman in the U.S. Congress to the first Black American woman to ever run for President of the United States. Regina King gives a transformative performance as the titular character, showcasing her fierce resolve and unyielding commitment to make history. The ending of Shirley chronicles the result of the 1972 Democratic Convention and Chisholm eventually dropping out of the race after being betrayed by rival candidate Walter Fauntroy. Shirley has an outstanding cast led by Regina King, Lucas Hedges, Terrence Howard, and the late actor Lance Reddick, who made one of his final posthumous appearances in the film. Shirley was written and directed by John Ridley, who won an Oscar for his work on 2013's 12 Years a Slave. Many of the characters in Shirley are dramatized portrayals of real-life political candidates, volunteers, activists, and other significant personnel involved in Chisholm's trailblazing campaign, including Congresswoman Barbara Lee and prominent attorney Robert C. Gottlieb, both of whom had been early supporters of Chisholm. Hubert Humphrey pulled out of the race with hardly 2% of all delegates. Hubert Humphrey is mentioned several times in Shirley but is not ever shown on screen despite being one of Chisholm's competitors and ultimately supporters at the 1972 Democratic National Convention. Humphrey served as the 38th Vice President of the United States from 1965 to 1969 under President Lyndon B. Johnson. Humphrey also served as a senator from Minnesota twice, from 1949 to 1964 and from 1971 to 1978. Humphrey was named the Democratic nominee in the 1968 presidential election, which he ultimately lost to the Republican nominee Richard Nixon. As depicted in Shirley, Hubert Humphrey pulled out of the race at the 1972 Democratic National Convention and kept his word by giving all of his delegates to Chisholm. This was a significant moment for Chisholm's campaign, as she would have received Humphrey's 67 pledged delegates, which would have raised her total number of delegates from 152 to 219. Chisholm was relying on all of the help she could get to at least give the heavily favored McGovern a run for his money for the Democratic nomination. Chisholm could then have held some leverage in negotiating with McGovern on policy or even a position for herself before ultimately handing over her delegates.